Okay. So the purpose of the pause model is to help us think about how to embody walking away from drama. So today, we always start this webinar with this is a coaching conversation, and conversation means it goes two ways. So please feel free to ask questions, talk to me, ask me, something that's going on in your world. We're going to do two breakouts, so you will have a chance to talk to each other. But let's talk about, sharpening the saw with regards to how we live our lives and what kinds of worlds are created by the drama. I can't tell you how many people when I have been talking to them recently about the book, they're like, I know so many people that need this book. They're like, okay, reading it and embodying it. So we really want to focus people on how do we practice what we learn. So that's the sharpening the saw. New material, and hopefully you'll take those tools away and be able to do something with them. So today we're going to talk about why pause, what the step-by-step model looks like. You're going to be into practice breakouts, and then there's going to be a coaching bridge for the work at the end. So part of why we wrote this book. So what was happening was my cousin and I decided about 10 years ago. This book is 10 years in process. We said, okay, what's missing from the therapy world and the coaching world? And we said, people are doing drama, okay? And so think about in 2016 what was going on in the world, especially in America, what was going on. And we thought, okay, people are building, drama stories about each other. So how are we going to move through it? And so we said, okay, let's write the book. And then it emerged that I saw the need in workplaces where stories were just being transmitted through the workplace and creating drama. And leaders were saying, can you please give me something, a tool that will help me deal with the drama that's occurring at work? So drama is universal, okay? I don't know if everybody would agree with this, but we all do drama. Okay. If we're honest, if we're really honest, we do it. Okay. And then we have to ask ourselves, is that the life I want to live into? But it just shows up. It's invisible. So this is a framework and a vocabulary to identify the cycle and see where we can break down. The pause model is the tool that you have. You can use it every day. Last week when I was in California, I used it on myself in the elevator that was going too slow. Okay. And I was just getting notched up and I was like, why am I doing this? And so I want you to understand that we can use this on a daily basis, sometimes an hourly basis. And what we're trying to do is interrupt a pattern. So remember, the brain wires, and so we're going to interrupt that wiring with this pattern. So we put a combination of neuroscience, emotional intelligence, and narrative psychology together because this is also it's also about how we interact with our world. It's drawn from years of coaching and lived observation, people asking for what can we do about it. It's also healthier for cultures. I can't tell you the companies I've worked with where one company was taken over by a larger company and they said, we're not mom and pop anymore, we're corporate. And the stories that get told as a result of things that are happening in the organization, it's a way to build it into organizations, individuals, teams, families, people. We did a survey at the beginning of the book that we asked people how they would describe drama and how it affects them. And sometimes the stories were tragic. So, how do we build healthier relationships with everybody we interact with? And you're going to hear me say this more often than ever going forward today and going forward. It's not just enough to have tools for empowerment. We have to embody those tools. So tools only matter when they live. So those of you that know, I'm a fan of Angela Duckworth, and she has those three circles in her plan, but at the top is your reason, your mission. And so I decided this week that my grit mission is embodiment through empowerment. Bring the tools to bear so people can live into them. And so that's what we're doing today. So why do we need a pause model? When I talk to you about the cycle in a couple of minutes, you're going to see me go one, two, we're going to go through 5 steps. Those steps happen fast. As I break them down and talk about them slowly, that's not how they happen. You have the thought and all of a sudden you're mad. Okay, that was quick. That was less than 60 seconds. Okay. So reactivity is fast, and the emotions we feel, we can distribute to anybody that's within range of us. That energy that is in the emotions gets distributed and it connects other people, both positively and negatively, by the way. Sometimes we're not even aware it's happening. All of a sudden, we walk through a room and we say, why am I mad? What is going on? What is going on for me? How do I de-escalate with what's going on? And so then we look at talking about um, the unprocessed emotions. We have to process emotions. And so when we look at the wave of how emotions are looked at first they were, don't bring those to work. And now they're at work. And leaders are saying, they're here at work. What do I need to do with them? How do I help my people? Because people don't process. So how do we look at a pause model to help people process? Leaders set the tone. How we regulate determines how the rest of the team regulates and the rest of the people around us regulate. Alignment matters. Pause ensures that your action reflects what you really want to live into, because you're taking a moment to ask yourself, is this the life I want to live? And without pause, our natural default is to drama. And when we are in pause, we're going to create clarity, choice, and a way of living with impact. So many of you know one of my favorite people, I'm actually the president of his fan club, is Mark Brackett. I love Brackett because he gave us a way to understand our emotions. He says there's 100 emotions. And those of you that have been in my coaching program know that we look at that model of 100 emotions. And in fact, there's 2 folks from the school, East Side schools that I've been working with in South Africa that are using Mark Brackett's work. And so we want to think about how we can bring ruler together with pause. Ruler is the emotional literacy engine. So we understand we have emotions, we accept that we have emotions, and Brackett challenges us to recognize we have them, understand where they're coming from, label them effectively, express them appropriately, and then build awareness for where you are going with them. And then we regulate, okay? One of the things that I found interesting, I love Dan Goleman's work on emotional intelligence, and it's been embedded in our curriculum, but it starts with self-awareness and then self-regulation. And I don't think it happens that fast. I think we have to go through either the ruler process or the pause process so that we can think about what do we want to do with those emotions. And so pause is really about the regulation of the emotions that you uncovered potentially with ruler. So they work hand in hand. They work side by side. So what's the moment? The jolt moment. People mirror what's going on. So our calm or our stress. And then it is reflected in how we come together as teams and as individuals with families and other folks. And it creates the ripple effect. We all on this call have walked on eggshells. I know we have. Okay. And we're like, don't say it. Don't say that either. It's going to cause an explosion. And so now we can say to ourselves, what is the path I want to go? So we can speak up for ourselves and we can move forward. So very quickly, the early drama model was a victim, persecutor, rescuer. Okay. So somebody was doing something to somebody else, and then we stepped in as the rescuer. So when we go in as the receiver, we're listening to the victim tell the story about the persecutor. So we talked about this as we were starting the call. It was a model of identifying where you were in the cycle, which gave us information. But what we really want to go to is the drama cycle so that we understand. And remember, this is where I said we're going to go slowly, but this is not how it happens. We have thoughts, experience, or events. We wake up and have a bad dream and we're angry. Okay. So we have this going on all day long, thoughts, experience, or events. And then we make meaning. And meaning is based on our worldviews. And the hardest thing for many leaders to understand and individuals to understand is we all have different worldviews. Our worldviews are based on our culture, our how we've been brought up, the schools we attended, the people we associate with. And really, a good place to find worldviews is in that values assessment. The values assessments tell you a lot about how a person approaches their world and the meaning they make after they have a thought, experience, or an event. And so rules. So we look at the high regulatory, and the high regulatory loves rules, right, Marcella? We love rules. And so what we do is we put everything in the, when we think about it, we put things in the container of are they following the rules or they're not following the rules? Okay. Then we have emotions. We might have frustration. We might have exasperation because they're not matching our worldview. And then we build a story because story helps us make sense of what we're feeling. Okay, why am I feeling this bad? So we build it into a story. And then we go into emotional contagion and we find somebody that will listen to us. Because when they listen to us and they listen to our story, if they're a good receiver, they validate our worldview. And that is absolutely wrong. And so that starts the emotional contagion. It builds into us, them kinds of processes and organizations. So, how do we get out of it? We go into the pause model, we interrupt, and we lead with intention. So, what does the drama cycle look like in the pause? So, drama thrives on our automatic reactions and our emotions. I broke that down and it probably took me 2 minutes. For most of us, it can be 30 seconds. Okay. When we feel it and we hit the pause button, we now think about it. We remember the amygdala hijack, that the amygdala is blowing up and the hippocampus, which is the thinking part of our brains, goes shrinking. So now we start talking to ourselves through the hippocampus and we create that space for intentional response. How do I want to respond? So, what is pause? So, the easiest thing to remember is the P stands for pause. How easy is that? We stop. We tell ourselves, stop. Just pause and notice what you're feeling, where you're feeling it, what's coming up. Okay. Then we acknowledge the feeling without judging it. Emotions are energy in motion. Suppressed emotions stay energized in your body. If you want to do an experiment, think about the times when you've really been upset. And if you do your heart rate when you're really upset, I used to do this with students at the University of Dayton. I don't do it anymore because it's a bad thing to do for your body. But I would ask them to think about a time when they were upset with a roommate or somebody in the last week. So, and somebody you were upset with in the last week and why you're upset with them, and feel into it. And we would do resting heart rate and feeling into it. So resting heart rate's around 60. After feeling into it, 80, sometimes higher, 88, because they're really mad about that. Those are chemicals in your body. So we want to acknowledge we have the feeling, and then we say, what's the meaning that I am making of this feeling? And what is the language we use to name that emotion? So we're acknowledging it and we're naming it. And then we uncover what's going on behind this reaction. So when I was on the elevator and the elevator was going slow, and those of you that know that I only have two speeds, fast and asleep, and the elevator was not cooperating with my main speed, which is fast, is going slow. And I felt myself notching up, and I'm like, what's going on? So I made myself go, what's going on? Well, I was in California. I needed to get to a meeting. I didn't know where the meeting was. I had a GPS and wasn't hooking up to the car so that I could look at it on the screen. I had to keep it below between my legs so I could look down, look up. And so all of these things started coming together and creating anxiety. I'm going to be late. I'm not going to be able to watch the GPS. Somebody's going to pull out in front of me. So the stories I was beginning to tell myself. And then I said, is this how you want to start the class? Is this how you want to go into that workplace? Because they're going to feel it. So we can look at what are the assumptions we make, what are the stories we're telling ourselves, and what are the patterns? How is this a pattern? We could go a little bit further and talk about being enough, okay? So then after we've said, okay, this is what that is, this is a pattern, this is how it shows up, we can breathe. Because remember when you start that kick off that stress response that your body's doing all those chemicals and your heart rate's going up to 88, when you breathe, you bring it back down. So you can challenge yourself to breathe, ground yourself, and settle. And then create where you want to go, the choice you want to make before you respond. And then always have 2 or 3 tools that help you recenter. Maybe it's breathing. Maybe it's going to your happy place. Maybe it's a song that you sing to yourself, but you recenter quickly. And then you say, well, okay, what do I want to do? Now I got it. What do I want to do with it? So you get to decide how you're going to respond by choosing something that's grounded and works for you. And it's aligned with your values. What do I value? I value how I interact with people. Okay, is this going to help? No. Okay, so enough about my fun life. It's time for you to talk about your fun life. And you're going to go into groups of about 3 and you're going to talk about a recent activity you had because it went through your head when I was talking about pause, how you responded, how you would walk through pause if you chose pause now based on the activity that you were thinking about. So the idea is, when did you get hooked by a thought, event, or experience? And how would you now go back to that experience and apply pause? Pause, acknowledge what you were feeling, uncover where it was coming from, start to shift, and then explore the options of things you could have done. Okay, we clear on that. Now I'm going to put you into, that was supposed to happen. I'm going to put you into groups. What did you talk about? And by the way, I can see your name, so you better share.
Peggy, this is Sepna. And our group, I thought it was really interesting because each of us had a story that brought something different to life. Diana's was more about how worldview plays into it, that part of the cycle. Mine was more about the story I tell myself. And then Tracy's was all about personality. Like, do we all have some type of personality that can lean into drama more or lean out of drama more? So we all shared examples and stories that had different parts of the cycle in it.
I love it. So what did you guys decide about personality?
That we would ask you about that. Right, Shay? Tracy, that's what we decided? Seppa, yep.
So I will say that extroverts are probably going to be more willing to engage in it because you S's have that little piece of you that says, don't say that either, don't say that either. But then we have to go into brain wiring. So your question is very complex. So how you wired as a child to share distressing kinds of things. So you might be an introvert, but you go find one person you can share with because you got to get it off your shoulders. So I think that we could look at every single one and say, in these situations, that's how it does happen. But I will tell you, Sapna, that worldview matters so much. because it's when something happens, it's a disconnect between what you want to happen and what happens. And that's what creates the emotional hit. What you wanted to happen is not happening. Okay. And so now you've got to build a story about why that's true. And it's usually involving another person. So really good work. Who else wants to share? Mike Collins, I think you want to share.
You guessed, Peggy Marshall. So, first of all, thanks to the two wonderful people that were in my breakout room. It was inspiring. It's amazing how these experiences to use the pause model have happened like today or yesterday. And the sharings in hindsight are, how did we end up behaving this way? So, Marcella, Tilly, what would you like to add?
Thank you, Mike. It was great being with you as well.
It's the audio again.
Oh.
I'm having digital and online glitches all day today. No, Mike, I think you summed it up nicely. It's like no matter how much you tell yourself that you must not feel these feelings, they do come up. And it's a question of how we navigate through it. But as long as I think an awareness is there, that this is something that we need to, recalibrate in our minds and, address differently rather than how we normally do it. I think that's what has come off from our meeting. Thank you, Mike.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And then we'll go to you, Marcel. But I do want to add, as much as we tell ourselves we don't want to feel something, it doesn't matter. We're feeling it. Okay. So we have to dig in and go, okay, what am I feeling? Even when it's yucky, we have to go, oh yeah, I'm feeling that yucky thing and I don't want to feel that yucky thing, but I am feeling it. So what do I want to do with it now? There's a decision process here. Marcella, what do you want to add?
Something that I wanted to add that my group helped me, kind of see it also in addition to, I was focusing so much about, oh, we need to use the pause model for like negative thoughts, for example, right, that we may have towards others. But they helped me understand that sometimes even to ourselves, like sometimes we get frustrated or, or we even get anxiety. So it's taking a step back and just asking ourselves, what would happen, right? Like why am I being so hard on myself to the point that I'm even feeling anxiety, like even being nice to others and us. And I think the pause model can help us with that as well.
Thank you for sharing that, because you're spot on. Like when I was in the elevator, nobody was with me. It was just me and myself having this really intense conversation, right? And we have those, and it's okay to have those, okay? One more person, and then we'll go into the rest of the slides. Who wants to share? Remember, I can see you.
I'll go, Dr. Peggy. We talked about, something that happened here at work and me just telling the person, first pausing and not really just going right into what I wanted to tell them, but just letting them finish their story and finish what they were feeling. And then telling them, like, leave your baggage. It's like when you're checking in, check in your baggage and then do what you can control and then get back to that later. And it's the same thing we have to do as coaches and leaders. We have to check our own personal feelings on things, let people vent and say whatever they have to say to us or do whatever, and then react. So that's kind of what we talked about.
I love it. I love it. Those of you who didn't get to respond, you'll have time after the second breakout if you want to. But I want to go back to Erwin's point, and that is check your baggage, put it on the plane, but don't pick it up when you get to the place you're going. Just leave it to keep going. I think they'll get mad at you, but go ahead and do that anyway. So back to the slides. We're going to dig into, okay, so if that's how the pause model works, then let's dig into what happens when we apply the model across the drama cycle. So we talked about the drama cycle, we talked about the pause model. Now, what are we going to do to apply it across the drama cycle? Okay, so there's a trigger. You have the trigger, and you say to yourself, what's going on? What's my body doing? How am I sharing information? What is my tone like? Acknowledge, I feel like a shift before reacting. I want to react. I really am angry. I'm really frustrated. I want to react, but I want to slow it down. So in response to the trigger, you're having a conversation about the trigger. And so you're asking yourself, is this true or is it familiar? Okay. Somebody should be turning their work in on time. Is it true or is it just familiar? It's really interesting. When I was in California last week, we had a range of conversation about coming to work on time. And it was a worldview conversation about having your butt in the seat at the right time. Is that familiar? Is it true? Where's the blend? And then how do we create space before responding? How do we just slow it down enough to create that space so we don't have the trigger and we have a response? We pause, we start asking ourselves through that process. And then we decide what's the intentional step? And then what's the clue of how I've been triggered and how I'm triggered frequently? And how do I want to think about that the next time I'm triggered? You all know I love to talk about the brain, and this just makes it easy for me to talk about the brain. But it's wiring on how we've always been. Okay, this is how we react to people not doing what we expect them to do. Okay, and were the expectations understood? So then we go into the meaning. So what's the interpretation I'm making? Okay, with the group I was working with, everybody should be to work on time. Okay, recognize the story your brain is wiring. I go to work on time. Why can't they come to work on time? What's the story that's going on with the wiring? And what else could this mean? One of the things we talked about was, as somebody brought the story up, I said, well, was it a first time or is it happening all the time? Okay, what else could it mean? You know, driving in traffic, all of those things. So can we ask, what else could this mean? And what are the assumptions I'm making? I guarantee you, when you are triggered, you made an assumption and it went into the meaning. I know why they do it. And you know what? When we say, I know why they do it, we know why we do it. We don't know why they do it. And so, what's the meaning? What's behind it? Have the conversation. How do we have dialogue and questions with someone who has missed some mark for us and that we want to know what happened? So, how often do you assume? How often do you assume before you ask? How often are you lit up by a trigger without asking first? And then we go into the emotions. Okay, anger, hurt, frustration. There are 100, disappointment. There are 100 on Mark Brackett's slide of all the emotions. It's real. Tilly, you have to tell yourself it's real. I'm really feeling this. What is this emotion telling me? I need to set boundaries. I need to be more clear. What is that emotion telling me? Because it's okay to have emotions. There's nothing in the literature that says you can't have emotions. The literature is full of, we have to acknowledge it, and then we have to say, what do we want to do with it? So what's your shift? Do you breathe? Do you reset? How do you reset? Everybody should have 3 ways they reset. And I don't care what they are, but you have to create them for yourself, whether it's music, whether it's going to your happy place, where it's deep breathing, whether it's walking around the block. We all need 3 that we can go to instantly because this process is happening instantly. Explore and take action. How does what I'm about to do align with who I want to be and who I want to become? And then the story. Oh my God, the stories are so fun. Okay, I love the stories. High eyes love telling stories. Notice what you're saying and be able to say, the story I told myself about this, I would never do that myself. Why is that person doing that? What's the story? Then we have to ask ourselves, is there another story that's possible? And how do I rewrite my story in alignment with what I want to happen? So share a story that builds trust and clarity when you're telling the story. This person doesn't respect me. A lot of times it's on our little childhood wounds of respect, abandonment, dismissive, any of those things. And so what story do I consistently tell myself? I'm not good enough. Oh, I'll never get promoted. All of those stories become part of the DNA when it starts at the trigger. And then now we got to give it away because I don't want to sit with these feelings and I got a story. So, what's the story you're telling and how are you telling it? And are you trying to convince somebody to believe your way with your story? Because that emotion is rippling through teams. What energy do I want to amplify as a coach, as a leader, as a teammate? And how do I reset myself with a calm presence? So you have to decide. You are either moving your team forward with possibilities or backwards with the emotional state you're creating from fear, anxiety, or the things that you are feeling. So, how do you want your presence to show up in the room? So now you get to go back. So, you get to go back in your rooms and you're going to coach Sarah, who has a team member who missed an assignment. And this is what always happens. I can't rely on my team. I end up picking up the slack. I end up staying late. I'm not even sure if these people care about the deadline. So the deadline was missed. I can't rely on my team. Sarah's frustrated. Excuse me. This always happens. And now it's spreading. Okay, Sarah doesn't even have to use words. Her facial expressions are spreading through the team. I want you to go in your breakouts and think about how you would help Sarah apply pause. Where does Sarah need space? What does she need to validate? What else could it mean? How can she reframe? And one constructive next step. I'm going to put this in chat so you'll have it, because once I go put you in rooms, you won't have it. But let me stop the share. Things that I noticed by accidentally putting myself in the room. The room I put myself in had a South African, a woman from Cyprus, and a man from the United States. And it was interesting to talk about how different cultures approach what was going on with Sarah, and that the worldview thing just came clear. So now I want to ask you to reflect on while you were in your rooms, how you, where you felt and how, what you felt about rather, what you felt about the stage of pause that felt most natural. But more importantly, did you align with Sarah or did you think Sarah needed to chill and grow up? So what happened in your room? I see your names.
Okay, Peggy.
Bring it.
So I'm just chuckling of she needed to grow up. We didn't even get there. We were talking about what was going on with her, about bringing all of those emotions that she was bringing in the room, of asking her questions about what's going on here. How are you feeling about this? I mean, it just felt like there was baggage that needed to be unloaded first. That's my take. I'm not sure if Marcella and Tilly agree with me.
Marcella.
Yes. Thank you, Mike. Yes, one of the things that we were talking about is, understanding why she's taking it personal, right? Like, I cannot rely on my team. Almost like, why are they doing this to me? Is helping her understand and taking a step back of not taking it personal. Let's just understand what's happening and maybe why is the team not turning things on time, and seek to understand and ask more questions to really get to the root of the cause and help her understand that this is not personal, like taking a step back and why is she feeling this way? What happened in the past that is making her feel this way? So just asking more questions and seek to understand before jumping into conclusions.
That sounds like a person that just finished the SRPC program. Ask more questions. What else were you thinking when you saw how Sarah was reacting? What did your group talk about?
Can I go?
Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
I actually found myself in Sarah's shoes and I felt like I could completely identify with her. And it was actually very good to do some self reflection in this process as well. So, not necessarily sure that I literally did what you asked of me, but it was um, it was hard to like I think I went back mainly to your disc and values and maybe learning more about your team and being able to work with them at their level. So with me being high regulatory, it gets frustrating when people are not doing things that I feel are right. And it's black and white. But actually it's not for all people. That's not how their values work. It's not where they, shine. And yeah, just to open communicate and make sure that your expectations have been clear from the beginning as well.
And thank you, Megan. And you can take pause and ask those questions. Okay. So first we pause, Sarah, and then we say, you sound really frustrated. So let's talk about that because that's where we want to go. What's creating the frustration, right? And then we say, well, what's beneath it? So going back to what Marcel is talking about, does this happen every time there's a deadline? Is this the first time it's happened? Does she feel like she's overworked, that her plate is full? We don't know what's going on, but every single person on this call either felt like Sarah or felt like Sarah needed to grow up. Okay. Because we're coming from our worldviews and how we're looking at Sarah. So were you able to get to the point where you could stop at each stage of pause? Did any team get through all stages?
Hey,
Bethel, you want to talk?
hi,
I
Dr.
don't
Peg.
think.
Oh, go ahead, Russell.
No, you go, Kathy.
Okay, Kathy, back to you.
I appreciate it. Yeah, we got through pretty much every step and then like kind of ended with the E in like what's the one thing, have you had conversations with the individuals? Can you go back and kind of just make sure expectations were clear or that they knew, so yeah, I do feel like we got through every stage. It was me, Cheryl, and Anne Marie.
Cheryl, did you identify with Sarah or did you identify with Sarah needs to grow up?
Earlier this week, I was Sarah. Today, I could have like, Sarah, can you just chill? So yes, Peggy, I think for me, what stuck out is that if you have somebody in high drama already, they're coming into your office and you're going to tell them, no, just calm down, be chill, that's going to have exactly the opposite effect. So I think as a leader and coach, you have to embody that calm, non-anxious, non-judgmental presence first, and to let them, what we would say, spill their guts, and then unravel it for them so that there is a clearer picture. Because really, if we tell them how to solve it, it's not going to work. That's not coaching, right? So they've
Right.
got to come to that realization first. And you can't do that if you're clouded with emotion.
A really good point. And we can't get to that last step. We can't help
Yeah.
them explore emotions, explore an opportunity rather, if we haven't talked to them about what they're feeling from their emotions.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some closing thoughts, okay? And wrap things up a little bit so we can get you back to your work. Emotions are social signals, okay? We feel them, we express them, they're part of our social fabric. Emotional contagion is real and fast. And the more I hook you with, we always look for confirmation bias. We look for someone that's going to go, yeah, to what we're saying, right? So now, not only am I hooked, you're hooked because you're going to find the person that says, yes, they should meet deadlines. You're going to find someone that agrees with that. You're not going to go to someone that's going to say, okay, let's do the pause model, unless you're looking to stop doing what you're doing. Leaders set the emotional temperature. So we have to help leaders think about their own emotional temperature. And of course, they have feelings and we want to help them work through them. Co-regulation, our ability to regulate our emotions supports others. As we learn how to do the pause model, it helps other people be able to integrate the pause model into their lives as well. And back to Tilly, unprocessed emotions don't stay contained. I guarantee you that maybe what's happening for Sarah is unprocessed. She hasn't dealt with how frustrating it is when people miss deadlines, and it's like, you're on my last nerve, and now I'm gonna have that reaction to it when it's been historically happening and went unaddressed. Okay, so 2 insights I want you to remember as we did the model and we talked about ourselves, and then we did the model and we talked about how to go into every step, every stage with the model. And drama cycles can be interrupted at any stage. We don't have to wait until it's emotional contagion. We can talk people down when they're being triggered. We can talk people into thinking differently when they're not acknowledging what's going on. We can help them understand. So the earlier we pause, the easier it is to shift. When people are telling me there's so much emotional contagion, I'm like, we've missed 4 steps. We've got to go back and pick them up. We missed the trigger. We missed the meaning being made. We missed the emotion when it occurred. We missed the story as it was being built. And now we've got contagion. So we've got to go all the way back. So the invitation for you as we leave today is, which part of the cycle do you need to most embody? And how are you going to help your teams when you think about that as you do the work? So quickly, I have 2 minutes, upcoming events. Okay, so yesterday when I sent the email out, I got everybody caught up on what we're doing the rest of the year. So we're doing from selfie to self-aware. I love this. I'm so excited about it. It comes from Tasha Urich's book on insight and self-awareness. And we're all saying, why aren't they more self-aware? Well, we're going to answer that on October 1st, okay? Leading across differences, worldviews. How do we lead across worldviews? How do we integrate those worldviews in on November 5th? And then December 3rd, we're going to talk about my other book that's coming out in October on sustaining impact, where we look at the first pillar and building the foundation. How do we build the foundation? And we're doing it in December so we can think about January and how we're building the foundation for being successful in 2026. Wow. Are we really that old? I don't feel like it. Okay. September 16th, we still have seats for the SRPC. September 22nd, we still have seats for the APC, which is the old first half of the RPC, which is our essentials. And then we have the RPC, which is the second half. So that's why it's written that way. We have coaching essentials on the 22nd. Then we have the remaining modules starting on November 3rd. So they're broken up into 3 groups. We have detached from drama. We do a 90-minute masterclass on September 15th. We do a 90-minute masterclass on sustaining impact on September 18th. And then the full programs, detached from drama is 4 weeks and sustaining impact is 3 weeks, and they start in October. I am so excited to see so many people from around the world talking about this model and how we can embed it. And I just am so appreciative of all of you who took the time today to come talk to us. So thank you so much. Have a good day. Please, if you have any questions about the model, reach out and I would be happy to share with you.